no doubt. These are all difficult things to do. That's the main thing. It's a difficult thing to do. Yes, so this is what fits for me. This is a difficult thing to do, siyam. Sadqa is a difficult thing to do. And so is secluding yourself. That's a difficult thing to do. These are all three options as a payoff for not being able to do possibly an even more difficult thing to begin with. So yeah, I think this nusuk is some kind of seclusion or time in seclusion. Another form of abstinence, nusuk. Okay, if I do sound short of breath or low in energy, it's because I'm still recovering from a 7-day water fast with several cleanses, very intense, very deep, and yeah, it's going to take some time to recover. And I've already just used up my energy today for several other things, but hey, I'm not a Netflix kind of guy, so here I am, and I want to get this video out. So, Salamun Alaikum everyone, by the way. Hope you're all doing well. So I was going to give an update on Patreon on Saturday about my 7-day water fast and the mace sessions that I'm currently going through, but maybe another time. So yeah, thanks to the conversation I had earlier, part of my extensive study on salah, this area I looked at like 4 to 6 months ago. I can't remember exactly when, and I was convinced that there's something here to try and understand this very debatable topic of salah. And anyway, I'll try to keep this short, simple, and quick. So manasik, is manasik rituals, or is it some kind of place of seclusion or some kind of sanctuary? Again, I'm hoping you guys can actually help. So this is more of an exploratory video, not something really definitive. I just basically began it straight after the conversation because I'd already looked at these verses. There's only a few verses that looks at this root: mansak, manasik, nusuk. Anyway, we'll go through them one by one. So manasik, is it rituals? Because that's what the whole controversy is about these days, isn't it? Non-ritualistic Islam versus a ritualistic Islam. People arguing over whether salah means prayer or not. And those who follow the channel already know where I stand. Actually, I don't stand in any of these camps. I'm just letting the Quran define itself. And it seems like no one really does have the answer. That's the honest truth. No one really has the answer. But anyway, let's see if we can get closer. If someone hasn't already figured it out, that is. Not that I'm trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to understand this. So just looking at this bit here that you can see on the thumbnail and on this screen here. For me, this seems to be the thing that stands out to me the most after looking at so many verses. And I have been looking at these verses regarding salah for 18 months, for at least 18 months, maybe even 2 years actually, when I first started looking at cosmological verses and just couldn't ignore what I was coming across in the channels that were already awake. So anyway, so we'll have a look at the first verse. So looking at the first verse, so there's only a few verses to look at regarding this mansak or manasik, or as you can see here, in this case manasikana. So again, you can see that they say our ways of worship. So they'll either tell you that this is prayer or worship or ritual or rite. And once again, the problem is the same thing with when I was studying cosmology, that they try to give as-sama several definitions when it just means one thing. They try to give even ard 2 definitions when it means one thing. You can put in brackets what that means in the context, but the word itself defines as one. And ours is the struggle to figure out what that word actually means. And many of these words we'll never truly know what all of them mean, but we can try. So yeah, manasikana. Okay, so this first verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 128. So after Ibrahim alayhi salam establishes the house and asks Allah to accept it. So obviously I won't be going into detail about those areas, but just looking at this one word here, manasikana. Manasikana. So yeah, they'll either tell you that means ways of worship or rituals or rites. And yeah, my question is, yeah, does it mean something to do with seclusion? Is it some kind of place of sanctuary, in a place of seclusion, a sanctuary essentially? And so yeah, after Ibrahim alayhi salam establishes the house and asks Allah to accept it, he says, our Lord, make us surrender to you. So I do think Muslim actually means surrender, not submit. Although I'm not, yeah, it doesn't really make a big difference, but just for me personally, if I was to choose one word, I would say surrender. I'm convinced it means surrender. Islam means to surrender rather than submit. There's something not quite right about that word submit with Islam or Muslim. It might be used elsewhere, but anyway. Yeah, our Lord, make us surrender to you. So yeah, my question is, where is Allah more likely to turn to us? Is it following a ritual, a rite? Could be. I'm not against rituals. I'm not against certain practices that you well could do mindlessly. I'm not against that. Not everything is with your mind fully engaged, in my opinion. So, but my question here is, where is Allah more likely to turn to us? Is it following a ritual, a rite, or in a place of seclusion from the mad, crazy towns and cities? Where is Allah more likely to turn to us? Is it following a ritual, or is it in being in a state of seclusion? So I'm just exploring again, just questioning. Manasik. For me, it seems like a sanctuary, essentially. You'll see as the verses go on. I do feel fairly convinced that this whole route is to do with some kind of seclusion to some kind of place of sanctuary, be it in your home or be it somewhere else. Abstinence from the world, essentially, for you to develop self-discipline. And I don't think it's coincidental with me doing that actually right now. So yeah. Okay, so that's the first verse. Where is Allah more likely to turn to us? Is it following a ritual? Because that's what's being asked here, isn't it? Our Lord, make us surrender to you, and from our dhurriyatana, from our offspring or from our descendants, a nation surrendering to you, and show us وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا, and show us our seclusion or our ways of seclusion or our places of seclusion, and turn to us. I genuinely think it is in a place of seclusion that Allah is most likely to turn to us. Not to say that when you're outside, when you're in your normal day-to-day life, that Allah will not turn to you. I'm not saying that, but just in the case of this manasikana, this manasik, this nusuk, I think it's a place of seclusion or being in a state of seclusion. So moving on to the next verse, nusuk. Yep, there is nusuk. Okay, so this one. So it's a derivative of the same one now. As you see, they've gone from worship to sacrifice. This is when you know that there's something a bit fishy here, when they can't seem to make up their mind about what a word means, and it switches from one place to the next. This is how it's always been for me. Okay, so again, I'm not ignoring the rest of the context, but just focusing on from around. Okay, so wherever, so in this verse 2196, so whoever cannot do something, again, not going to go into all of the details around this about Hajj and Umrah and the sacrifices or whatever that actually is, just focusing on this bit. So then whoever, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيدًا أَوْ بِهِ أَذًى مِنْ رَأْسِهِ فَفِدْيَةٌ مِنْ صِيَامٍ أَوْ صَدَقَةٍ أَوْ nusuk. This bit. Right, so here, if you can't see nusuk here, as they've said here, sacrifice. So what we actually have here is whatever it is that a person cannot do, whoever cannot do this first thing that is advised, then, right, as it says here, then whoever, faman kana, then whoever is among you ill, marid, whoever among you is sick, or he has some kind of ailment in his head, ailment of his head, So what is supposed to be done? Ignoring that, I'm not talking about the sickness or the ailment in the head, just focusing on this bit here from this. Fafidyatun. So what is this person supposed to do if they couldn't do that first thing and that they are sick or they've got some problem in their head? What is it that they're supposed to do? They're supposed to give a ransom, some kind of payoff. And that is defined furthermore, that ransom or payoff is defined furthermore with 3 options. What are the 3 options? Siyam, sadqa, nusuk. These are the 3 options. Again, so if the person cannot do that first thing, then they can make up for it with a ransom, fidya. That's what fidya is, a ransom. Some kind of payoff. So, but furthermore, beyond the fidya, what kind of fidya, what kind of ransom is it? There's 3 options for that fidya. One is siyam, which is some kind of fasting or abstinence. The second one being a sadqa, charity, or the third one being nusuk. So now you'll begin to see how this root that we're looking at today, the derivatives of this root, how it seems like, they can't make up their mind what is this exactly. But we can pinpoint what it is or get closer to what it is by looking at these 3 different types of ransoms. So if you look at the other one, there's no denying that siyam is some kind of abstinence, some kind of fasting. So that is some kind of sacrifice. You're sacrificing. Again, we don't need to go into detail what type of fasting or abstinence that is, but it is some kind of fasting or abstinence. Whether it's speaking to someone, again, just not going to go into any of that. Whether it's fasting from food or drink. There's many types of fasting, no doubt. But the fact is that a person is doing something, they are sacrificing something, they are making some kind of serious spiritual, physical, mental effort in paying off for being unable to do that first thing. So that's what they're doing there. Or if they can't do that, because obviously you can be in a condition where you can't do that, where you can't do some kind of fasting from food, drink, or whatever it is. So what's the second option? It's giving some of your wealth. That's quite a bit of a sacrifice as well. It depends on who you are, what your situation is. That can be quite a bit of a sacrifice as well. So as you can see now, fidya is a ransom. So this doesn't actually help because these are all sacrifices. So you can tell immediately that this is a very lazy translation. Nusuk, sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. As we just saw here, they said our ways of worship. Worship is not sacrifice. Well, you can be sacrificing your time, but still, a person can utter several words. It's not necessarily a serious sacrifice. I don't think so anyway. But this, if you look at this now, so I think it's seclusion and I think it fits. So 3 types of ransoms, 3 types of payoffs that you can choose from if you could not do that first thing. One is abstaining from something, fasting from something. The second one is giving up some of your wealth, sadaqah. And the third one, nusuk, I think is seclusion. But again, you can be the judge. This is, as I said, it's exploratory, and you guys can hopefully help. Okay, so a ritual, nusuk. A ritual. It's definitely not a ritual, a rite. I think it's some kind of time in seclusion. Another form of abstinence, basically. This is one form of abstinence, I think, which mostly is eating or drinking. Or let's just say someone is right, that there is also the fasting from speaking to anyone. I agree, that is still a form of abstinence, and it's a serious sacrifice. It's a serious spiritual effort, no doubt. These are all difficult things to do. That's the main thing. It's a difficult thing to do. Yes, so this is what fits for me. This is a difficult thing to do, siyam. Sadaqah is a difficult thing to do. And so is secluding yourself. That's a difficult thing to do. These are all three options as a payoff for not being able to do possibly an even more difficult thing to begin with. So I think this nusuk is some kind of seclusion or time in seclusion. Another form of abstinence, nusuk. So that's the second verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 196. We've just looked at verse 128 and now 196. And now the third verse, using this, one of the derivatives of this root that we're looking at, is a few verses after that, in verse 200. So, manasik. Where is it? Yep, here it is. Manasikakum. So, then, when you have finished, I think it's then when you have finished your seclusion. Then, when you have finished your seclusion. So they said our ways of worship, then they went to sacrifice and worship again. I think it's all seclusion. Then when you have finished your seclusion, then when you have completed your seclusion, فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُمْ مَنَاسِكَكُمْ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَذِكْرِكُمْ. Then when you have completed your seclusion, coming out of seclusion. So if you're thinking about this, coming out of seclusion. Again, I'm not denying that when you've prayed, it can be the same thing. When you have done your prayer, then still remember Allah more. A bit like what we're used to. But I'm just looking at this, manasik. Then when you have completed your manasik, when you have completed your nusuk, essentially, then when you have completed your seclusion. So it looks like to me, coming out of seclusion, abstinence from the world, being more self-disciplined, is now where you are recharged spiritually for the mad, crazy world. For the mad, crazy world. So even this dunya, I don't think is actually the world. I know we call it the world. I think it is the low life. When they say hayat ad-dunya, the lowly life. So that's what we're living in case anyone has forgotten. We're not in hell. We're living in the low life. We're living in the low life. For anyone who believes other doctrines and thinks that we are actually in hell, we're in the low life. So yes, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf got that much correct at least. I mean, I'm sure he's got many things correct. There's truth everywhere anyway. But yes, hayat ad-dunya, it's the lowest. It's the lowest of the lowest. So that's why it's, people shouldn't be surprised. It's a mad, crazy world. And a lot of the times we think it's something new. There is new things, but at the same time it's still nothing new under the sun, as they say. Nor is the fact of them trying to convince us it's the end of the world or it's the end times. All of this stuff anyway. But it could be a new era. It could be a big new era. It could be an end of an era. It could be the end of everything. Anyway, I don't want to go there. So yes, then when you have completed your seclusion, coming out of seclusion, abstinence from this low, crazy, mad world, this low life, being more self-disciplined is now where you are recharged spiritually for the mad, crazy world. But don't forget, this is what Allah's saying, but don't forget, that's what it's saying. Allah's saying, then remember, dhikr. So don't forget, now that you're recharged, don't forget, dhikr, remember Allah like we remember our forefathers. فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَذِكْرِكُمْ آبَاءَكُمْ أَوْ أَشَدَّ ذِكْرًا. Like we remember our forefathers, or even greater. That's how Allah describes how we should remember Him. Like our forefathers, or even greater. It's quite a profound statement, actually. I think it's easily forgotten. Okay. So, yeah. Are these people out of seclusion going to forget Allah and only ask for this lowly world? This is the thing. This is what Allah says here. So, if you think about what I've just said, seclusion, then when you've completed your seclusion, remember Allah as you remember your forefathers, or even with greater remembrance. And then Allah goes on to say, فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. And from mankind is those who say, our Lord grant us in this dunya, and not for him is anything for the hereafter, not for him is any share of the hereafter, because this person is only asking for this world, this lowly life. But the thing is, if you look at this context, if a person's come out of seclusion and they've recharged themselves, then are they going to forget Allah? Doesn't look like it. Less likely. Are they only going to ask for this world? It doesn't look like it. Less likely. It's those who are probably not doing this act of seclusion. Again, just my opinion, exploring. You guys can let me know if you agree or if you have something on this. Yeah. So actually Allah goes on to tell us the correct version in the next verse, what the believers is supposed to say. So this one is only asking for this world, but we're supposed to say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Our Lord grant us both worlds, essentially, and save us from the fire. Okay, so that's the 3 verses from Surah Al-Baqarah covered regarding this root, nusuk. Okay, and then the next one. Okay, before I go to that verse, I just want to look at that verse preceding. So I'm going to go to the next occurrence here, which is what you see on the thumbnail and what I began this session with, which is this: Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahiyaya wa mamati. A lot of people will be familiar with this. A lot of people will have this ingrained in their memory. But preceding this verse is another powerful verse that I cannot ignore right now. So as much as I'm trying to stay focused on that, I need to just mention a few things on this verse. So say, or call, as it says, qul. I really don't think that's a coincidence. Qul, call. So call out or say, whichever you like. Qul innani hadani rabbi ila siratim mustaqim dinan qiyaman millata Ibrahim hanifa wa ma kana min al-mushrikeen. Those who are following the Quran alone will love this verse. It will be deep in their hearts and a reminder of why we do what we do. Okay, so so say, I have been given huda. This is a very powerful verse. It's very important. You know, we recite that Surah Al-Fatiha. As you've seen already, I've done part 1 and 2 of Al-Fatiha. More coming once I've recovered. The worst is out of the way last week. I'm just recovering now. But yes, as we can see, Ihdina Siratal Mustaqim, we say several times. How many times? Here we got Huda, Siratal Mustaqim. And we always talk about Deen and Islam. And we talk about, so we've got all of that here. So what is Allah saying? Or what is it that we're supposed to be saying? Say, I have been given Huda. to Siratim Mustaqim. The upright deen, or the upright terms, deen, although I've said it's debt repayment, deen is some kind of debt. So the kafir have their debts to obviously Satan, and the mushrik have their debt to Satan, whereas we have our debt, inshallah, to Allah, because we're on different terms. That's what I think this is. This deen is something to do with debt and terms. So here we have defined what kind of debt we're supposed to be on, or what kind of terms we're supposed to be on, and it is the terms of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The upright terms, the upright deen, the upright debt that he was on, of the millet, yeah. So just a little bit on that millet. So we're supposed to be, we say Ihdina Surat Mustaqim. Here we have it furthermore defined. It's the upright deen, the upright terms of the militant Abraham, the monotheist. That's essentially what that is. If you look at this whole bit here, Deenan Qiyaman Millat Ibrahim Hanifa, that is essentially the upright terms of the militant Abraham, the monotheist. So again, I think a lot of people will love how that sounds, because that's what it is. We're fighting to hold on to this. We're fighting to hold on to this, with so much resistance and so much outcasting and mockery and everything. But that's what this is. This is the cost. This is why he's renowned. This is why he stands out. Anyway, focusing on, or not diverting too much. So yeah, he was not a false associator. Okay, so this is again very important. So it's furthermore defined what is a Hanif. Yeah, just in case for new ones, a lot of people will know this. This Hanif is furthermore defined that he was not an associator. This polytheist is a very bad definition, because it gives people the idea of ignorant Jahil, people of the past, or like Hinduism, or I don't know, other things that, have several of these idols. But it's none of that. It's anyone who is associating any falsehood with Allah. Any falsehood, any book, anything. So yeah, that goes for any narratives, by the way. Any narratives that you like the sound of, or you like the look of, and you apply that to this. So have to be very careful. This Quran has to define itself, and you have to be careful of every narrative and not associate anything false with Allah or his words or his book. So now, yeah, moving. So this millet, this militant, the reason why I say millet, and it was brought to my attention much earlier this year, and I just didn't get around to having a look at it. But yes, I do agree. So first of all, there is no, when they say religion, they say deen is religion. It's not. As I've already said in Surah Al-Fatiha, deen is some kind of debt repayment, day of recompense, as they say, Yawmuddin, day of recompense. So it's the day of debt repayment. And I think it's something like that to do with the terms that you're on, but it's not a religion. Or you could say it's a religion in the old definition of religion. So again, I never looked into this. I knew that this current definition of religion is not correct. These three Abrahamic faiths. And again, I looked at all of this a year ago. I'll just bring up the extract from the book. So when I did do that video early last year, or I don't know, what was it, just over a year ago, about Maryam alayhi salam and fake history basically. When I was looking into all of this, I just realized, I realized much earlier when we first started going into the whole Quran alone in April. When we were looking at then, I already realized there's something funny going on, because Musa alayhi salam was never mentioned with Torah, So that's already an immediate giveaway. There's something funnier. Because if these religions were real, then Allah would have clearly mentioned, and we gave Musa alayhi salam the Torah, but it's not there. And again, if these religions were real, Allah would have said, and we gave Isa alayhi salam the Injil, but it's not there. What Allah does say is that Isa alayhi salam received the Injil and the Torah, but Musa alayhi salam is never mentioned with the Torah. So I'm just going to read out this bit that I have here, one of the chapters in the book. So although the book is heavily on the hour and the earth, but many of these areas that has been uncovered is within the book. But I just don't go deeply into it. If it seems to be that it needs to be mentioned, it's in the book. So I'll just read out this bit here. 3 Abrahamic religions versus 1 Millat Ibrahim. So it's very hard to single out Torah as something exclusively given to Musa alayhi salam. In fact, it is never mentioned alongside Musa alayhi salam, not the way Allah is exclusively mentioned alongside him. So this will begin to make sense for some people. So Allah is mentioned alongside him, not the way Furqan and Kitab are also mentioned alongside him. I'm not denying the previous books came to previous messengers. That's not the point. But what they're teaching us, what they're telling us, that's questionable. So, not the way Furqan and Kitab are also mentioned alongside him. And we know that Furqan and Kitab are names, attributes, or descriptives of the memorized and recited Quran that 2 billion Muslims affiliate themselves with today. Whether it is even billions or the number of population that they tell us it is. That aside, whatever it is that most Muslims affiliate themselves with today, which is the Quran, we recognize that the Quran is also known as the Furqan, and it's also recognized as the Kitab. There's many names of the Quran. So why do we decide that Torah or Injil are not descriptives of Allah's book? And I'm still yet to figure out exactly what Torah and Injil is. But one more time, for those who are new and skeptical, Furqan, Allah is exclusively mentioned alongside Musa alayhi salam. And Furqan and Kitab. But the word Torah is never mentioned with Musa alayhi salam. So it appears that several versions of a book, a kitab, have made their way to different groups of people at different times in the past. But it is hard to show proof that Torah, which, again, I could be wrong here. I don't know exactly what Torah is, but I do remember looking earlier and I thought, is this... They're usually adjectives. Quran, it's a description. It means reading, a reading quality. So is Torah some kind of hidden, pristine quality? I don't know. But one thing's for sure, that you cannot prove that Torah is the Jews' book and it is Musa alayhi salam's book. You cannot prove that in the Quran. The second one, again, Injil. Does that mean something that's grassy, greeny, something that brings some kind of... we can think what that means, that it enriches you, it nourishes you, it brings life, like the green land, green grass. Is that what Injil means? Something that brings an increase to some kind of spirituality, some kind of life, because that's what it is, right? These books bring people out of darkness into light. And if you think about Torah, it's nothing wrong if that means that it's something of pristine quality. Something that's pristine is something that is kind of preserved, hidden. Again, I'm diverting, but wait, Injil, the main point being Torah. You cannot prove in the Quran that Torah is the Jews' book. You cannot prove that it is exclusively Torah is the Jews' book and that is Musa alayhi salam's book. First sign. You cannot prove that Injil is a Christian's book and that it's Isa alayhi salam's book. He's mentioned with Injil and Torah. Nor can you prove the Quran is Muslim's book and it is Muhammad alayhi salam's book. You just can't prove these things. This separation is hard to prove. In fact, the opposite is easy to prove. These religions are hard to prove. The creed or the millet of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Muslim monotheist, is very easy to prove. So again, I'm not going to go too much further into this because I've already covered this, but I just wanted to remind people the main point is that these religions do not exist. And in fact, if anything, just one more thing, that this whole parting and grouping, la nufarriqu bayna ahadim. Again, this is a big diversion, but I'm gonna stop here. This whole making partings, making divisions is a very, it's the opposite. It's frowned upon. It's not even frowned upon. It's a curse. It's pharaonic, oppressive sectarianism, as I've put here in the book. So quickly moving back to nusuk. So the next verse we're looking at, I was just talking about the verse preceding that, about the millet, the militant terms that Ibrahim alayhi salam was on, or the militant way, however you want to put that. There's something militant about that, and the Quran is anti-religion, at least in the way that the modern understanding of religion is understood today. You know, these three Abrahamic faiths, or any other religion for that matter, they do not exist. There are psychological profiles in the Quran, those who are following certain ways. Yeah, it's very simple. You're either following the monotheistic way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or you're doing kufr and shirk, essentially. So yeah, in the original, in the modern sense of the word religion, deen does not mean religion. But this, if you look at what religion used to mean, some kind of binding, it seems. So if someone means that, some kind of binding, yes, absolutely. You know, the upright binding of the militant way of Ibrahim alayhi salam, you can say, but not the modern sense of the word religion. Some kind of binding. So yeah, if you look at that, some kind of binding, religieux, Latin, religieux, in the original sense of what religion probably meant, because that's what happens with a lot of this language. It gets changed, distorted, and twisted, and it no longer means what it's supposed to mean. I think many people will recognize that with much of the language played today. If it means some kind of reverence, any of these things, yes, absolutely. Obligation, bond, reverence, binding, but it no longer means that. Today it means that you join one of these parties, you join one of these political parties. So civil, just a bit more on the religious. It's very interesting that the opposite. So what does civil mean? So it's civil is distinct from military. So they kind of see that as the opposite. You're either in the military or you're in some kind of civil service or something. But what's interesting is the opposite of being civil is being religious or military. I find that very interesting, that the two are seen as similar. The being religious or being in a military. And you can kind of see how those two do actually match, because if you're in the military, you are following a religion, or at least what we understand as a religion today. But what we're told is that we're supposed to follow the militant way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay. So now, all of that just because we're looking at Surah Al-An'am verse 161, which precedes the verse that I wanted to look at. So just one more time. Say, indeed, Allah has guided me to Sirat al-Mustaqim, Deenan Qiyaman, Millat Ibrahim Hanifa, wa ma kana min al-mushrikeen. And then in the next verse, we have this bit. So this is actually what this whole session is about. My question, have I got it right? Is this service and seclusion, or is it prayer and rituals? Yeah, they'll say this is a ritual and that's a ritual as well. There's one type of ritual and that's another type of ritual. It could be. I'm not anti-rituals. I'm very pro-rituals. And I'm not in any camp. I'm just letting the Quran define itself. So this verse now, قُلْ إِنَّنِي قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say or call, indeed, my salat and my nusuk and my وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي, my life and my death, or my living and my dying, are for Allah, رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ, Lord of the realms, رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, Lord of the 7 heavens and the earth. So is it my ritual and my ritual? So this is focusing on this, not focusing on salat, focusing on nusuk. Again, just one more aspect, because that's how I've been doing all of this. I'm not trying to define what salah is. I'm trying to define and be clear about everything connected to salat. Those who follow the channel will see that I've tried to do that with several aspects, which will help, zone in on what this salat is, slowly but surely. So say, is it my ritual and my ritual? That's what I'm asking. Or is it, say, my service and my seclusion and my living and my dying are for Allah, Lord of the realms? I couldn't get away from this. I don't know, whatever it was, 4 to 6 months ago. I thought, this is something very definitive here, the way it's said as well. It seems like we're getting opposites here. Again, those who recognize the language of the Quran, the style of the Quran, they'll see what I'm talking about. Wa mahyaya wa mamati. This is the opposite. My living and my dying. So my theory is that this is kind of polar opposite. Whatever these two are, salat and nusuk, they're kind of polar opposites. Just like living and dying are polar opposites, but connected. They're connected, but they're opposite. So is it that salat is my service? Because I had to have something to play with, and I thought service seems to fit with salat, but I'm open to it. I'm just playing with it. I thought salat is service, and if there is some kind of prayer, then it's a service prayer. If there is some kind of ritual, then it's a service prayer. If there is, Allah knows best. And I still pray, and I still, it barely resembles anything that anyone does, or anything that anyone claims it is, and I'm really completely loose about it. And over time I reject all of this, whatever anyone thinks it is, because they make all of these claims, and when you check that out, it's just cognitive dissonance. It's just twisting and enforcing things to match what it is that they want it to be, as opposed to what the Quran is making it clear to be. But let's just say it is prayer. I still keep to some kind of prayer aspects, which still barely resembles anything that we have been traditionally taught, but I still pray. So for those who are judging me, I still pray, but I don't tell anyone that it means this, and that you have to do this, and that if you don't do this, you are doomed, and that you are going to hell, and that you have nullified this, and you have fallen out of this, and all of these things, I don't believe any of that. Like I said, I'm not in any of these camps. Okay, so the opposites I see here is what I do and what I abstain from, what I seclude myself from, essentially. That's what I see here. What I do in this world, it's engaging in this world, what I do, my services in this world, and what I seclude from. That's the way I see this. Again, you guys can let me know. Maybe some of you have already looked at this and know better than me and can help. Again, this is just exploratory. So what I abstain from, none of my works is dependent on any of this, so I don't mind if I'm wrong. So what I do, service engagement, and what I abstain from, what I seclude myself from, that's what I see here. It's opposite, just like life and death, opposite. You can let me know, inshallah. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This lovely behemoth. Lovely, beautiful behemoth. So why am I looking at a behemoth? Because the next verse we're looking at mentions this behemoth, in my opinion. Behemati, beast. So again, just one more example of how a lot of these words do seem to come from this Quranic Arabic. So the next mention of manasik. Mansakun. Again, as you can see, now they've decided it means right. Ritual, worship, sacrifice, right. That's when you know. What are you doing? You can't make up your mind. Oh, no, no, no. One word means multiple things. Yep, okay. Yeah, you live in that confused world. Right, so yeah, this behemoth. Yeah, that's what I think this is. Behemothi, beast. So some kind of bestial cattle. So this I'm just giving you a bit of context of this verse we're looking at now that mentions manasik. Again, this nusuk, mansakan. And for every nation, so when we have we, by the way, for new people, we means, it's not a royal we, it's not a mistake. It means Allah and His Majesty's Mala'ila'la. Because obviously as Allah is majestic and Allah in His Majesty, Allah does some things and He has people below Him working for Him doing other things. So when we have we, it's Allah and His Mala'ila'la, His high chiefs or His high kings. So, and for every nation we made for them. Is it rituals? Going back to that again. Is that what we made for them? Rituals. Well, it is funny that if we made for them rituals, that we don't have the details of these rituals. That is what rings a lot of alarm bells, that we don't have the details of these rituals. And it's crystal clear that we're supposed to follow this book and that it explains everything and that there are no contradictions in it. And everything that we do is our attempt to try to, understand that the best that we can. And we're not going to understand everything. And we will differ. And Allah will judge on Yawmuddin that in which we differed. So, okay. And for every nation we made for them rituals, so that they may remember the name of Allah upon what He provided for them from the behemoth, the bestial cattle, essentially. So again, not looking at anything that we don't need to look at, just focusing on this word, manasik, mansakan. And we made for every nation, we made for them rituals. Is that what it is? Rites and rituals? Or is it, as I've been saying, seclusion, places of seclusion, moments of seclusion? I don't know exactly, but it seems to be seclusion. And we made for every nation a seclusion, or a time of seclusion, or a place of seclusion, that they may remember, so that they may remember the name of Allah upon what He provided from the behemoth, or the bestial cattle. Is it seclusion? Away from towns and cities, where you are more likely to remember and maybe even see this behemoth. Well, obviously you can't see this version, but whatever we have left today, the equivalent. So is it in the time of seclusion? Is it in the land, away from towns and cities? Is that the kind of seclusion that Allah is speaking of? Manasik, nusuk, manasik, nasiku, secluding yourself for Allah. Is that what this is? Away from towns and cities. So where are you more likely to remember the name of Allah over what He has provided of the bestial cattle? Is it in another ritual? Again, just questioning. So as you can see, obviously I think it's seclusion. But moving on to the next verse. Mansakan and nasiku. I do like this slow pace. I think, what is this, the 8th or 9th day away from coffee or any caffeine. Yeah. Anyway, I prefer this, I think. Mansakan and nasiku. Repeated. Yeah, this is repeated again. So what we just looked at previously, this is repeated. Similarly, like 30 odd verses later. And we made for every nation a place of seclusion, that they may remember the name of Allah over what He's provided of the behemoth cattle, or the bestial cattle. Behemothi, behemothil an'am. It's about the rizq from behemothil an'am. Where are you more likely to remember that? And then it's repeated 30 odd verses later. لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا هُمْ نَاسِكُوهُ. So now we've got two versions. This is the last verse, I think. Yeah, this is the last verse. So we got two versions, mansakan and nasikuhu. So if I give you a bit of context for this one, Surah Al-Hajj, Surah number 22, verse 67. Okay, if I give you a bit of context, here. So we're looking at this one, this final verse to do with this nusuk, mansakan, nasiku. So again, we have appointed rites that they fulfill. Can you see? That's another big giveaway. We've gone from ways of worship. We've gone from ways of worship, sacrifice, rituals, rites, and now all of a sudden fulfill. Fulfill? Is that what you're saying? Nasiku who means? They don't know. Well, it doesn't look like that they know. So another alarm bell. But anyway, I'm just giving you a bit of context. So yeah, I don't want to be too harsh. Obviously, everyone's probably over time they've tried to improve their understanding of this Quran. So we're grateful to have the resources that we have. So I don't want to be too harsh. But yeah, with this now, if you look at this, the context. So again, looking at these final two words, nusk here. But if you look at the context, do you not see? Think about that. What is Allah talking about? The earth, al-ard. Do you not see the earth? Do you not see the ships that sail or flow? You know, the sea, whatever all of this actually means. But this is what Allah's bringing us to think about. Do you not see what? This is all the stuff that you see away from towns and cities in seclusion. Do you not see the earth, the ships, the sea, the heavens? Yeah, the heavens. It's always heavens. It's always blooming heavens. Yeah, heavens. As-sama, heavens. Yeah, one of my first biggest frustrations 2 years ago. Heavens. Okay, so do you not see all of this? The earth, the heavens, down there and up there. Do you not see out there the sea, the ships? Where are you going to see all of this stuff? Where are you going to think about life and death? The next verse that Allah says, it is He who gave you life and that makes you die. Where are you going to think about this? Then comes the mentioning of these two roots. Nasikuhu. Mansakan, nasik. I mean, these two derivatives of that root. So going back to that, we just looked at that. So is it the case that Allah is speaking of? So is it the case that Allah is saying, for every nation, we made mansakan, a seclusion, nasiku, nasiku, that they seclude themselves for Him, or they are His secluders, whatever this exactly means. I focus more on the words, not the exact nitty-gritty of how you're supposed to phrase that. But again, you guys can help if I've got any of this wrong. But it does seem to be it's all about seclusion. And we have made for every nation seclusion, a seclusion. Nasiku, mansakan, seclusion. Hum nasikuhu. They seclude for Him, or they are His secluders, or they seclude. However you want to put that. It seems to be some kind of asceticism. It seems to be some kind of asceticism. So if you know what asceticism is, it's some kind of seclusion, it's some kind of refrainment, it's some kind of, again, a lot of these things are given bad connotations. Even the rituals, it's given a bad connotation. It doesn't mean that rituals are bad per se, but this religion of rituals, definitely there's something extremely wrong there. So yeah, my feeling is that nusk is some kind of seclusion, some kind of asceticism, if you like. Maybe not in the extreme sense that we see. Again, everything has got its extremes. Everything today, whatever you talk about, everything has got its extremes. Doesn't mean that you can rule it out. So yeah, asceticism is not that you shouldn't. Yeah, is not that you should not own anything, but that nothing should own you. Ali ibn Abi Talib. Take that however you like. There's truth everywhere. But yeah, it does seem to be some kind of seclusion, some kind of asceticism. And just a few of the verses to finish off with, the come after that verse. So we have mansakan nasiku, and we have made, in my opinion, we have made for every nation seclusion, that they seclude themselves for Allah. So let them not argue, so let them not dispute with you in the matter to your Lord. Indeed, you are surely on hudam mustaqim. It's all about Surat Mustaqim again. Ihdina Surat Mustaqim. You are surely on you are surely on the straight path, essentially. And then the verses after that. And if they argue, then say, Allah is most knowing of what you do. وَإِن جَادَلُوكَ فَقُلِ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And if they argue with you, because everyone is going to argue about this. Again, it's all in the Quran. People have done this from the very beginning. If Islam is the truth, how come they can't decide on when the new moon is, or when Eid is, or when all of this is? People are always judging the people, but not the book. And say what we like about Zakir Naik, but many of us did follow him as a source of guidance in the old days, at least. And I still remember he was right. The analogy of the person who's following the book. Are you gonna judge the people following the book, or are you gonna judge the book? Are you gonna judge the car maker and the quality of the car, or are you gonna judge the people who are crashing that car because they don't know how to drive it? It was a great analogy. So just because people are going crazy with their Ferraris, Mercedes, or BMWs and crashing them, are you going to judge Ferrari, Mercedes, and BMW for the top quality, the impeccable machines that they've made? Or are you going to judge the people who don't know how to drive them? So yeah, if they argue, and Allah knows we are going to argue, and if they argue, then say, Allah is most knowing of what you do. And just one last verse. Allah will judge between you on Yawmul Qiyamah. Fima kuntum fihi takhtalifun. There's going to be ikhtilaf. There is envy amongst the people of the book as well. And there's going to be ikhtilaf as well. So we will argue, we will differ. It's okay, we will differ. Allah will judge. Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki Yawmiddin. Owner of the day of Deen. Owner of the day of debt, repayment. Owner of the day of recompense. Owner of the day in which the terms that we are following on will be judged. So some might say, et tu brute. Et tu brute, you as well? You are giving up this salah, you're on their side, you're giving up this ritual. No. I'm not on anyone's side. I'm not on anyone's camp. I'm just trying to figure this out for myself. The day I join a camp, the day I join a group, is the day that I've given up my own autonomy. The day I've given up my own intellect, my own ability to think. And yeah, do let me know if you agree or if you disagree. And if you know better, again, like I said, this is exploratory. I'm not saying that Salat is one thing or the other, for sure. And I'm not saying that I figured out what nusuk is as well. But you can let me know, inshallah. Okay, that's as much energy as I've got for today. If you've reached here, thank you for listening. And I'll see you on the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.